And welcome everyone to NFL Week 17 and the Fumble Sports early week preview as we go through the early betting lines and give you some of our early fantasy advice. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. Through the next hour plus, we'll go through every game this week and get some analysis from those who we appreciate their advice so much. The first of which being Lope at JLopeDog, DAWG. Lope, how are you doing this evening?
Doing really well. A little nervous about the big Dolphins Patriots matchup though, and the news about Tua. I'll admit that.
Yeah, what are we hearing right now? Is there any chance that Tua Tagovailoa actually misses that game?
There's talks that he's in the concussion protocol. I think there's conspiracies about what kind of PR look it would be if they send him back out there and you have another sack or a hit that knocks him out, like in the Cincinnati game. But
PR conspiracies, maybe not. PR challenges, I certainly agree with. But that said, I have heard that Teddy Bridgewater is getting the first team reps. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that matchup. Also, of course, want to give a big shout out to someone else who does a great job giving analysis, which is Adam at Spotter AJ. That's at Spotter AJ. Adam, hope you had a great holiday. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, real good. Everything was good over the weekend. It was much like everybody else. It's a whole slate of games. NFL, NBA, it was good. Packers obviously got it done over Lope's Dolphins somehow, some way. But unfortunately, my Bucks got pummeled by your Celtics. So take one and give one away. But yeah, all good.
That's sports. You get ground on one place, you give it up in another. But as long as you're getting entertainment throughout your day, that's all that matters. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube, of course, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. We're going to go through every game of NFL Week 17 with those giving us analysis. And then after this show, we will jump over and answer all of your fantasy questions on YouTube and on TikTok Live. But let's start out tonight by first looking at the playoff picture right now. If the playoffs started today, unbelievable, but the Jacksonville Jaguars would be in the playoffs. They would be going up against the Baltimore Ravens for the opportunity to probably play the Buffalo Bills unless somehow Justin Herbert could overcome Joe Burrow in a crazy 6-3 matchup. What an outstanding matchup that could be. And then, of course, the Tyreek Hill Bowl is a possibility in the 2-7 matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. On the other side, in the NFC, the Eagles have an opportunity to wrap up that number one seed this week against the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, the matchup that everyone's been hoping for is still on pace to occur. Can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secure the NFC South? If so, they'll probably face the Dallas Cowboys in that 4-5 matchup. Then in the 3-6 matchup, it's the Brock Purdy-led 49ers going up against Daniel Jones, who all of a sudden is looking pretty good on the road. Will be an interesting matchup. Obviously, the 49ers defense will make them a heavy favorite in that one. But then finally, you have the Kirk Cousins Bowl. The Washington Commanders right now have that 7 spot, and the Minnesota Vikings, hoping that the Eagles somehow trip up, are just on the fringes right now of that 1 seed. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. We'll be going through every game of the NFL week in the next couple of minutes. And of course, make sure you're hitting us up with your questions for fantasy, gambling, anything else that you need. Let's start out by looking at that first game on Thursday Night Football as the Dallas Cowboys go into Tennessee to play the Titans. The Cowboys are 11-4. They play a Titans team that's 7-8. This one's going to be on Amazon Prime. Right now, where I see it, the Cowboys are a 10-point favorite. The over-under set at 40.5 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and break this one down and get everyone's analysis. The underdog is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Cowboys and the Titans. The road team is 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 meetings between the two teams. The Cowboys are 9-2 against the spread in their last 11 games in December. The over is 5-0 in the Cowboys' last 5 games overall, and the under is 10-2 in the Titans' last 12 home games. Adam, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this matchup between the Cowboys and Titans?
Well, like we say all the time, these double-digit spreads are so hard to cover, but this Tennessee team is spiraling out of control. They lost their last 5, including last week to Houston, which is a horrible loss. Tannehill being gone puts Willis in the game. He did go 14 for 23 for 99 yards and 2 interceptions, which is not very good, and was also sacked 4 times. Dallas is going to throw the ball all over this 31st ranked pass defense, I think, on Houston. But the biggest thing to me, like I just mentioned, Willis was sacked 4 times. I think Dallas gets pressure on Willis, and a pretty easy win for Dallas here. Not comfortable with double-digit points, so Dallas in the money line, and don't really have a play on the over-under. I'm not really sure. Tennessee's going to be able to score a lot in this game. I know they're going to try to run Henry, but I think with Dallas's pass offense against that defense and their defensive line will control this game. So I like Dallas in the money line in this one.
Loeb, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I agree. There's not a whole lot of money play directly on the line and the spread. Maybe a few player props, but it's a really big spread. But Dallas is going to win the game. But their defense is concerning. So if I did have anything, I would have a slight lean towards the over. Their defense seems to be struggling, but yeah, Tennessee is completely imploded and all kinds of. They can't get anything going offense. So do be wary and scared. Maybe want to buy a point or so on that.
With the Titans having one of the best run defenses in the NFL, expect the Dallas Cowboys to rely less on Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott and to rely more on Dak Prescott on Thursday night. Fortunately for the Cowboys, Dak has a higher completion percentage and QB rating with fewer interceptions on the road this year than at home. As for the Titans, 5-game losing streak, second in the AFC South behind the Jaguars. They're right now missing the playoffs for the first time since 2018, Mike Vrabel's first season. I think the slide continues. I like Dallas on the money line, and I like the under in this game, riding with the trend under being 10-2 in the last 12 home games for the Titans. I'm going to lean slightly towards the under. I'm considering Dallas covering this one once I buy the points. I haven't quite touched that yet, waiting to see where public money takes it. But for now, the Butt Fumble Sports pick of the game is Dallas on the money line and the under after you buy 1.5. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. See that a couple other people have joined us. Would love to get their takes on the game. We'll start with you. Let's see who comes in first. Evan, what are your thoughts on this one? Evan, what are your thoughts on this one? Okay, maybe not. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. Let's continue now with the next game that we're going to cover, a big matchup in the AFC East, this one between the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. Whoever wins this game owns their destiny, or controls their destiny, rather, in the AFC playoff standings. The Dolphins come in with an 8-7 record, the Patriots at 7-8. Of course, these teams matched up in week 1 of the season, with the Dolphins getting the home win. This game is on CBS. Where I see it, the Patriots are a 2.5-point favorite. That shifted once the news came out about Tua Tagovailoa. So originally the Dolphins were favored in this game, but now the Patriots are the favorite, and the over-under set at 42 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and get everyone's analysis. The Dolphins are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings they've had with AFC East opponents, while the Patriots are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 games against AFC opponents. The Dolphins are also 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 meetings with the Patriots. The under is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings between the two teams, and the under is 4-0 in the Patriots' last 4 games against AFC East opponents. Adam, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this big game in the AFC East between the Dolphins and Pats?
So it's supposed to be a little bit of weather in this game, some rain, some fog, 55 degrees. But this game completely changed for me with the news of Tua today. Obviously, this line opened up at -1 Miami, like you mentioned, and swung all the way to -2 New England. New England, had to come back last week in Cincinnati, had a chance there at the end of the game, and kind of threw it away. They did pick Burrow off twice, which is pretty impressive, but he did also throw for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns, which isn't good either. But I think with Tua in this game, obviously the Packers put pressure on him and really gave him trouble in the second half. But with him not being in this game, I think you have to lean New England here. I'd wait to see towards the end of the week if Tua does play. But for me, this outlook has completely changed with that news of Tua. If Tua does not play, I think you have to lean New England on this one for sure.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one? Do your Dolphins come through?
Obviously, want to wait and see and hope Tua passes the concussion protocol. They've won the last 4 games against New England. I think Tua is actually undefeated versus Belichick. But for now, I would say the under's probably going to be the play, but I can't rightfully put money on a winner quite yet until I know about Tua, but I would slightly lean towards the Patriots in the under right now.
Lope, it's like you're looking right at my notes right now. I feel very much the same way. I actually really like Teddy Bridgewater to cover this game if ultimately the points get to +3. So if I can get +4.5, I really like Teddy Bridgewater to cover because I think that the Patriots are going to have a really tough time with Waddle and Tyreek Hill. This Patriots secondary is not as good as it's been in years past, whether with J.C. Jackson or Stephon Gilmore. So there's a lot of reasons for me to believe that they'll have trouble with some of these wide receivers. That said, I do have a sneaking suspicion that this game is going to be a brutal one in terms of picking a money line. So I'm going to avoid it for now, much like Lope. I'm not touching the money line. I do love the under in this play. So under 43.5 points is probably my favorite play right now. But again, I would very much consider Miami to cover, especially if you get the points to lift just up enough so you can get it above 4 points. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to check out is a battle that's in the NFC North with a number of playoff implications, or at least for one team, as the Detroit Lions make a big home game against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 3-2 and 3-12 entering this game, with the Detroit Lions 7-8. This one is on Fox. The Lions right now, where I see it, are 6-point favorites with the over-under set at 52 points. Some gambling trends before we get everyone's analysis. The underdog is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the Bears and Lions. While the Bears are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 road games, the Lions are 8-0 against the spread in their last 8 games versus NFC North opponents. The over is 8-1 in the Bears' last 9 games overall, and the over is 5-1 in the Lions' last 6 games versus divisional opponents. Adam, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this one? I feel like I know where you're going to go on the money line, but when it comes to the spread, can we trust Chicago?
Yeah, I think Detroit finally back at home where they play a lot better. But as far as trusting Chicago, this is one of these teams here, and I think as you get to the last 2 weeks of the year as a handicapper or a bettor, you really got to pay attention to teams that have something to play for and some that don't have something to play for. If you're looking at this game and you're thinking Chicago's going to come in and play all their starters and Fields and really trying to go after this game, you got to pay attention to who's going to be sitting, who's not going to be sitting. Sometimes they want to get some younger guys into play. But if this game is straight up as Chicago's going to come in and try to play to win the game, Detroit's defense is 20th against the rush. So that's got Chicago written all over it. Chicago's, if one thing they've been able to do this year, it's been run the ball, obviously, with Fields against these poor rush defenses. Detroit does play much better at home. It was a bad loss against Carolina. I think that was the game we really needed to have. Now they definitely need to have this game back home against Chicago. Chicago is 1-6 on the road this year, which I don't like. But at 5.5, I like Chicago's running game enough to control the clock and keep this game somewhat close here. So if I had to take one on the spread, I'd buy it up to 6.5, and I would take Chicago with the points. But like you mentioned, I would definitely take Detroit in the money line here. Is probably the smarter play. But for the point wise, I would take Chicago plus 6.5. And as far as the over under, I think you're gonna have a lot of people looking at the over in this game. But I think what Chicago's game plan would be to run it and keep it close to the vest. So I would actually lean towards the under on this one, where I know a lot of people will be taking a look at the over.
I'll jump in off of that. Adam, I'm going to be one of those people going in the other direction than you. I really like the over in this one. The trends kind of speak to that, as well as I think these are 2 defenses that are really bad in a number of ways. I think Justin Fields could get a number of yards on big plays. I think David Montgomery could have a good game. So I like Detroit on the money line. I like the under right now. It's under 50.5 if I buy it up. The 1.5 is Butt Fumble Sports always does. So I love the under in this play, or rather buy it down to make sure I get the over. But that said, I am leaning maybe just slightly towards Chicago covering. Something is telling me that there's a chance of that. I'm not quite there yet. I'm waiting to see where the public money goes. I'm hoping it makes it a little bit more favorable. But that said, the Butt Fumble Sports pick is Detroit on the money line and the over after you buy a 1.5, while we are considering Chicago on a cover play. Lope, I'll let you round this out. Do you agree with me or Adam on this one? Do you like the over or the under in this play?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over. I just can't trust the defenses, and especially when you saw the Lions' run defense has been so bad. That's exactly what Carolina's game plan was, and I think that Chicago's just gonna be able to run it and get some big plays and big chunk yardages. So especially inside. As for that, I'm kind of with you. I'm a little weary. I'll take the Lions on the money line, but I'm a little leery on them covering the 6 points. So I think for right now, the strong play is the over.
Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Butt Fumble Sports, and of course on Twitter at Sports Fumble. Appreciate all of you joining us, and of course appreciate the number of people who are a member of our buddies community, those who are following us and giving us their fantasy questions and game pick questions. Make sure you do as well. We're going to have a number of sessions throughout the week to make sure we answer all of your fantasy and gambling questions for NFL Week 17. So make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to talk about is an AFC West matchup between one team that's playoff bound and one team that is now without a head coach. They'll have an interim for the moment. The Denver Broncos are 4-11 and fired their head coach on Tuesday, while on Monday, while the Kansas City Chiefs are 12-3. This game is on CBS. Kansas City is a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 45 points. Some gambling trends. The Broncos are 3-8 against the spread in their last 11 road games, while the Chiefs are 3-12-1 against the spread versus a team with a losing record. The Broncos are 4-10 against the spread in their last 14 meetings with the Kansas City Chiefs. The under is 3-0-1 in the last 4 meetings in Kansas City between the Broncos and Chiefs, and the under is 5-1 in the Broncos' last 6 road games. Obviously, this one's going to be a story between Patrick Mahomes and where he's going in his next few weeks and what Russell Wilson has done to the Denver Broncos over the last 4 months. But is there any chance that Russell Wilson gets a cover? Adam, I leave it to you. Can the Denver Broncos cover what is almost a 2-touchdown spread?
Yeah, what a mess it is in Denver. I mean, they just got absolutely throttled by the Rams, 51-14. Obviously, we did mention Hackett got fired. Wilson's a mess. The whole team, they're pushing and shoving on the sidelines. Just complete disarray. On the other side of the coin, Kansas City had a pretty good win, I think, against Seattle, 24-10. They did a real nice job of keeping Geno Smith and Walker in check. And their defense did play a little bit better there as well. Again, these double-digit points is too much for me. I think this is a game that obviously Kansas City in the money line, I think everyone will probably be in agreement on that. Could they cover this 14? Absolutely. If they could cover 14 against Seattle, they certainly could cover 14 against Denver. But this might be one of these ones where you could tease Kansas City down in a teaser play if you didn't want to try to lay the double-digit points on this one. But obviously, Kansas City in the money line here. And as far as the over/under 43.5, it's just in a weird window for me because I don't expect Denver to score many points in this one. And if Kansas City gets up 24-27, do they, sit tight with 2 weeks remaining in the season? So that one's kind of a no man's land for me. But Kansas City money line, and I would tease Kansas City down.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this game?
I'm in agreement with Adam. The only play that really is Kansas City in a money line if you want to do a parlay, or definitely a 6-point teaser and tease them down with a slight lead to the under. Denver's just they've completely fallen apart. Their offense you can't believe in at all to get any points. Now an interim coach, and the Chiefs have played the Broncos really, really well. So there's just nothing to believe that Kansas City couldn't come out and do this. It's just when does Andy Reid call the dogs off?
I definitely like Kansas City on the money line, and like mentioned by Lope, I'd fold it into some parlays. I certainly think that's an easy play for the week. Patrick Mahomes has never lost to a divisional opponent when it comes to the Raiders and the Broncos. I believe he's undefeated against he's undefeated against the Broncos. He's never lost to the Broncos. So I certainly like that play. That said, I love the under in this game, under 46.5. That's what I have it at. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this game is Kansas City on the money line and under 46.5. Don't need to jump on this one too long. We'll skip over to the next game that we have, which is a big one for playoff implications once again between the Cleveland Browns, who are eliminated, but the Washington Commanders, who are holding on to that last wild card spot in the NFC. Cleveland comes in with a 6-9 record. Washington is 7-1-1. This game is on Fox. Where I see it, Washington is a 2-point favorite with the over-under set at 40.5 points. Some gambling trends for you. Browns are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games following a straight-up loss, while the Commanders are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 versus a team with a losing record. Under is 5-0 in the Browns' last 5 games overall, and the under is 9-3-1 in the Commanders' last 13 games overall. Adam, what are your thoughts on this one?
So Cleveland, obviously, a tough loss last week. New Orleans with that bad weather game. San Fran and Washington last week. Washington kept it close, and San Fran pulled away there in the second half with just too many mistakes. And we talked a little bit about it last week, but they did make the switch. They did bench Heineke, and they put Wentz in there to see if they could get something going. So my assumption is Heineke's going to start this game. I haven't heard of anything else. To me, this is a defensive game. Who's got the better defense? I think Washington's got the better defense. And as far as offensively, the way Washington can run the football against that Cleveland 25th ranked rush defense, I think is what tells the tale here. Much less a team like Washington who really needs to win this game. They really need to bounce back and put a win on the board. So back at home, Washington's running game against that poor Cleveland defense. I like Washington minus the 2.5 here.
Lope, do you agree with Adam? Is Washington the easy cover play for you?
I don't know how easy it's going to be, especially if they're waffling quarterbacks. But I think the strong play, I'm going to go, each of the Browns' last 5 games have been the under. I'll stick with the under, and I'll wait to see how the money comes in. But I might actually be leaning towards the Browns to cover. I think they could play a little bit of spoiler here.
Interesting that you're going in that direction, Lope. Maybe I'm just believing too much in Washington. You might be onto something there. I'm now starting to hesitate a little bit, and I might come back to the Browns on a cover play later in the week. But for now, I do like Washington on the money line. But more importantly, I love the under in this game. I think the under is the best play for this game. All the trends speak to that. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for now is tentatively Washington on the money line, while I consider the Browns on a cover. But that said, my favorite play from this one is under 42 points. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to talk about is between 2 teams that aren't going to the playoffs, but have interesting storylines, to say the least. The Arizona Cardinals limp into Week 17 with a 4-11 record, while the Atlanta Falcons are 5-10 and are still mathematically alive in the NFC South. This game is on Fox, where I see it. The Falcons are a 4-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 41 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and get everyone's analysis. The home team is 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 meetings. The Falcons are 7-3 against the spread in the last 10 games they've had versus NFC opponents, while the Cardinals are 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 road games. The over is 5-1 in the last 6 meetings in Atlanta, while the under is 4-0 in the Falcons' last 4 games overall. Adam, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this game between the Cardinals and the Falcons?
Yeah, this is one of those games I mentioned earlier. 2 teams that don't have really much to play for all as far as a playoff scenario, but playing for jobs. Arizona really played tough against Tampa and had a chance to win that game late. Didn't get it done. Atlanta went to Baltimore and lost to McSorley versus Ritter. To me, I don't even know where to go on this side of this one. I guess you can lean Atlanta on the money line at home. I wouldn't lay the points. And as far as the over/under, I know the trends lean towards the under, but since these teams have nothing to play for, this defense is really going to try to shut the other team down. So I could see that total being a little bit lower, maybe buy it down a point or 2 and play on the over. So for me, I'm not even going to play this game, but that's what I would do. I would take Atlanta with the money line and buy it down and take the over if I had to play it.
Lope, what are you going? Where are you going in this game?
I like the over as well. Last 4 games between Cardinals and Falcons have hit over, and I think that's both teams will do enough to cover that. As far as the game goes, though they're two teams that are kind of out of it, they're also two teams that are kind of like different. I think Atlanta's a little bit more happy with where they're at than Arizona, who seems to be just waiting for Cliff Kingsbury to get out of there. I think his voice is lost in the locker room. So I'll take the Falcons and I'll take the over.
I can understand why you're going in that direction. I really am not touching this game right now. I tend to lean towards where Lope is thinking, but for now, I'm avoiding this game altogether. Don't have a good feel on this one. Maybe it comes out in the injury report that gives something away. There are only a few things I like in this game, and it's really the running backs for the Atlanta Falcons. I could see Patterson and Algier having good games, but I'm really avoiding this one. I really don't have a good sense of it. And with that said, I'd rather try and avoid it and give out some bad advice. So I won't touch this one for now. But that said, curious to know where Public Line pushes this one. I was surprised that the Falcons were 4-point favorites. I know Desmond Ridder showed a bit of life in that game against the Ravens, but he had a bad first half, good second half. Don't know what to make of it. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to go into in the 1 p.m. slate on Sunday is the 4-9-1 Indianapolis Colts playing the 8-6-1 New York Giants. This game is on CBS. The Giants, where I see it, are a 5-point favorite, and the over-under set at 39.5 points. Some gambling notes for you. The road team is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the two teams, while the Colts are 10-1-1 against the spread in their last 12 games following a double-digit loss at home, while the Giants are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games overall, and the over is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings between the two teams. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game between a Colts team that looked terrible on Monday Night Football and a Giants team that's desperate for a win to stay in the playoff hunt?
Yeah, like we talk about every week, this Jeff Saturday is it's hard to get these guys rallied around, especially how they're going to come off that Minnesota loss. Well, they played not very well, obviously, like you mentioned last night. Foles was really bad with 3 interceptions, but that offensive line let him get sacked 7 times. So for that reason, that Giants defensive line should be able to get after him. Barkley's been playing better, and again, this is just a situation where you have a team that has nothing to play for. In the last 2-3 weeks, they've got their teeth kicked in, and now you have a Giants team back at home who desperately needs a win. So for me, I definitely would play the Giants in the money line here. The over/under is kind of in the middle again for me. I probably would lean towards the under. I don't think Foles and that Colts offense is going to do a whole lot, and I think the Giants between Jones and Barkley will be able to run the football on the Colts. So I like the Giants in the money line here, and I would just stay off the spread together.
I'll jump in and give my take on this one before we get to Lope because I'm leaning right there with Adam. I like Giants on the money line in a must-win game for them at home. I think there are a lot of reasons to like that. Certainly a game I would fold into some parlays, but I also am considering the under in this one. Definitely feel like that's the better play given what we saw from the Colts offense on Monday Night Football. Lope, I'll let you cap it off. Are you making it a New York Giants money line sweep right here?
Yep, I think we're all in agreement. Giants really need this game. Colts just seem lost, and it's not just coaching; it's personnel too. And I'll take the under, and I'll be okay swallowing the 5.5 points. I think this is a game the Giants really need, and I thought they felt like they let one go with Minnesota. I think they're going to look to bounce back and make a statement here. So I'll take the Giants money line, and I'll take the under. I don't think the Colts are going to score a whole lot.
The next game we're going to cover is the 7-8 Jacksonville Jaguars playing the 2-12-1 Houston Texans on CBS. This game has big implications for the Jacksonville Jaguars as they have the inside track to the AFC South title. They just need to win out. They are a 4.5-point favorite in this game where I see it, and the over-under is set at 43.5 points. Some gambling trends before we get analysis from everyone. The Jaguars are 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 games overall, while the Texans are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games versus AFC South opponents. The underdog is 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 meetings between the two teams. The under is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings in Houston, and the under is 4-0 in the Texans' last 4 games versus AFC South opponents. Adam, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this game between the Jaguars and Texans?
So Jacksonville obviously now controlling the division with their win last week against the Jets on Thursday Night Football, getting a little extra rest, and Tennessee's loss to Houston. Houston's been a thorn in a lot of team sides here the last couple of weeks. They gave Dallas a run, KC a run, and then finally beat Tennessee. Back at home now, where they're 0-6-1 at home, which is bad. So I think the easy play here to me is Jacksonville, the money line. Again, another team that needs to win. Houston's playing for jobs, coaches, obviously for jobs as well. The spread's interesting, though, because I could see Houston playing tough Dallas, tough Kansas City, finally getting that win, coming back home and kind of having a little bit of letdown here and having Jacksonville win this game by 7. So I actually don't have a problem laying the points on this game. As far as the over-under at 43.5 or 44, Houston has been able to move the football and score some points. So, you know, it could have us buy it down a point or two and a slightly to the over, but I don't think I'd be afraid to lay the points here with Jacksonville minus 4.5 and also with the money line.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one?
Definitely don't. I don't think anyone wants to play Jacksonville right now. They're red hot, and but the Texans have had a little bit of their number as of late, and have, like Adam said, have been playing teams tough. So I would be wary. I think that this could be one of those Vegas traps. I think everyone's probably gonna say Jacksonville minus 4.5, but I'm gonna wait on it and see. And if it gets up, I might even take the Texans in a big money if it gets up high enough on a cover.
You might take Texans on the money line or on the cover, Lope?
Cover, my bad.
Okay. I tend to agree with you on that one. I actually am considering that as well. The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Jacksonville on the money line. I feel like they will continue to add on to their winning streak. Feel good about that. However, I also am considering Houston on the cover. They've played really up to the level of every opponent they've had on their schedule. No reason for me to think that backslides now. It doesn't continue. So I like Jacksonville on the money line while I consider Houston covering +6. I love the under in this game, though. Under 45, I think I'm going in that direction. I think the Jacksonville defense and the Houston defense are going to play a little bit better than people think. So I'm considering the under as well. Make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports, answering all of your fantasy questions, gambling questions, player prop bet questions. A lot of interesting ones in this matchup. One player I'm definitely looking at is Travis Etienne. He could have a monster game versus a Houston Texans defense that's terrible against running backs. So really a great matchup and something I definitely would check out for player prop bets as well. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to cover is a big game in the NFC South that will absolutely decide who makes it to the NFC playoffs. This one's between the 6-9 Carolina Panthers and the 7-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and will be on Fox. Where I see it, the Bucs are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 39 points. Some gambling trends before we get takes from everyone. The Panthers are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games versus the NFC South. The Buccaneers are 1-7-1 against the spread in their last 9 home games, while the favorite is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the two teams. The under is 8-3 in the Panthers' last 11 games versus the NFC South, and the under is 4-0 in the Bucs' last 4 versus the NFC South. Adam, what are your thoughts on this matchup? A big one in the NFC South between the Panthers and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I agree. A monster game in the NFC South. And again, you know, Tampa Bay back home just looked awful last week against Arizona. This offense is so inept, and it's just, you know, there's a lot of dissension, I think, in the locker room. I don't think Brady and Bowles see eye to eye. You know, obviously a much win for both teams. Carolina had a big win against Detroit last week at home. They scored 30 points in 2 of their last 3 games, which has been pretty impressive for Carolina. The thing is, who do you believe here? You know, it's the Brady theory. It's so hard to bet against them at home. You know, Cincinnati was there laying points. You know, same thing. Like, how can Brady be catching points at home and Cincinnati covers? This is kind of one of those scenarios, I think, here, too. I think Carolina's playing better football than Tampa Bay right now. I don't believe in anything that Tampa does on both sides of the football. And with the resurgence of Deontay Foreman, you know, last week at 165 yards rushing last week, I think they can run the ball on that Buccaneers rush defense that isn't all that great. So right now, I think the better football team is Carolina. So if I'm getting 3.5 in this game, I definitely would play Carolina. And because Tampa's offense has been so bad, and Carolina has scored 30 points in the last 2 games, but I think Tampa can do enough to keep them in the 17 to 20 range. So I would buy up that over-under a point or two and play to the under. But if I'm going to get points with the team right now, Carolina playing really well, and I think they just that locker room is a little bit more believing in the interim coach Wilkes, and I think they're pulling together more of a team. Whereas I think Tampa's got more of a little disruptive locker room right now. So I would take Carolina with the points here.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's hard to believe in anything Tampa is doing, like he said. But with that being said, I just think there's too much talent with the Brady factor at home. The big game. He's been here before. There might still be some nerves and some mistakes from Carolina. I think Tom Brady will do enough. So I'll take the Buccaneers -3. And as you read off, all the trends are leaning towards the under. I think that's the play. 8 of the Bucks' last 9 games as favorites have gone under. So I'll take the Buccaneers -3 and under 39 as one of the strongest plays this week.
This is an interesting matchup for me because this is one in which do you believe in the brand and the hype of the brand, or do you believe in the trends? I'm a big believer in the trends. I'll start with the under, just like Lope said. All of the trends suggest that the under is the better play. So I'll buy the 1.5 and I'll take the under at 40.5. Feel really good about that. That said, I'm not necessarily talking about the money line, but when it comes to the spread, I love the Carolina Panthers this week. As Adam spoke to, I don't know why the Bucks are getting this much respect and the Panthers are getting this much disrespect. Over the past month, the Panthers have looked like a really good team. The Buccaneers have looked terrible. So the only reason right now that the Bucks are favored is the Tom Brady factor and the fact that the Bucks are at home. But in reality, which team is playing better? It's the Carolina Panthers. I'll even double down on that. The Buccaneers are 0-6-1 against the spread at home this season. They have not covered the spread once at home this season. They've just had a push. So that's the best they've had all year. I think that continues. I think Carolina +4.5 is one of the better plays of the day. It isn't one of my best bets, only because, no, to Lope's point, I'm not going to make a best bet going up against Tom Brady. But in terms of confidence, it's certainly on the higher end. Carolina +4.5 after you buy the 1.5. I love that play. I am considering Tampa Bay on the money line simply because, to Lope's point, could I see Tampa Bay pulling out a last-second win like we've seen now multiple weeks over the last over the last month with Tom Brady? I could, but Carolina +4.5 and that running game, I'll believe in it. I really like that play this week. So even though it's Tom Brady, I'm going against him when it comes to the spread. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to talk about will hopefully decide, at least for Eagle fans, the number 1 seed in the NFC East, as well as the NFC overall, as the 6-9 New Orleans Saints play the 13-2 Philadelphia Eagles. This game is on Fox. Right now, the Eagles are a 7-point favorite, still learning whether it's going to be Jalen Hurts or Gardner Minshew. Minshew had a really good game against the Cowboys last week, but just too many mistakes to ultimately pull out a win. The over-under set in this is set at 44 points in this one. Some gambling trends for everyone. The home team is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Saints and the Eagles. The Saints are 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games following an against the spread win. The Eagles are 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 home games. The under is 4-0 in the Saints' last 4 games overall, and the over is 11-1 in the Eagles' last 12 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this one between the Saints and Eagles?
Well, I think the easy play, obviously, is Philly on the money line in this one. If you can get this thing under 7, I actually wouldn't have a problem laying the points of Philadelphia in this game. Minshew, like you mentioned, too many mistakes last week with 2 interceptions, but he did throw for 355 and 2 touchdowns. New Orleans obviously went to Cleveland and got that win. The thing I don't like here is that New Orleans is 2-5 on the road. But the one thing that really bothers me with this team is Taysom Hill's got a lot more playing time here with Dalton. I know it was a bad weather game last week in Cleveland, and it probably made more sense to have Hill in the game. But they've actually been running this Taysom Hill Dalton thing a little bit more towards the end of the season, and it's working okay. But I just don't like it. I think it doesn't provide continuity for the offense, and I think that it can be a little bit more disruptive than it can be helpful. Philadelphia, like you mentioned before, they have one more win and they secured the number 1 seed. So, like I mentioned, Philly in the money line is an easy play, and wait to see what Hurts and Minshew does. But if you can get this under 7, I wouldn't have any problem laying the points here with Philly.
Lope, are you laying the same points or going in the same direction as Adam?
I'm not as confident until we know more about the injuries and more. The more pressing one to me is the right tackle, the All-Pro Lane Johnson. He hadn't given up a sack the whole year. He's been a stud for them, and he went down, and I don't think he's going to play. So I think Philly's going to get the win. They would love to do it in front of their fans and clinch the seed and try to rest up, but I don't have. I think they'll do just enough, but I'm a little weary when it comes to laying the 7. I'll look towards the under 44 because I think their defense will stand up and hold the Saints down.
Lope, it's not just Lane Johnson who's out with an injury, and it's expected he'll be out for the remainder of at least the regular season. But Avonte Maddox, a major part of that Eagles secondary, is out, and that's expected to be a more serious injury. So the Eagles are absolutely banged up coming out of Dallas, and they're going to need this win with the Minnesota Vikings not necessarily right on their heels because the Eagles do have that tiebreaker. But if the Eagles kind of mail in these last 2 weeks, there is a chance that they could lose that number 1 seed. And given the health status of a number of their important players, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, and others, it's really important that they have that very valuable bye week. So I think this is a must win in many ways for Philadelphia. I do like Philadelphia on the money line for just that reason. I'm not crazy about this spread. I can see Adam's point why there might be reason to like the Eagles, but I'm not quite there yet for the very reasons Lope brought up, which are the injuries to the offensive line. So I'm going to wait and see where the public money pushes this one. Not crazy about the over-under either. Curious to know what weather will be. Curious to know how the injury report ultimately plays out. But I do like Philadelphia on the money line as an early week play. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. Now a battle of rivalry teams, even though they're in different conferences. The 11-4 San Francisco 49ers play the 6-9 Las Vegas Raiders at 4:05 on Fox. The 49ers are a 6-point favorite with the over-under set at 45 points. The 49ers are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games, while the Raiders are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 home games. The Raiders are 5-0 against the spread versus a team with a winning record. The under is 7-1 in the 49ers' last 10 road games, while the over is 4-1 in the Raiders' last 5 home games. You hear a lot of diverging trends in what I just listed out. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game between the 49ers and Raiders?
So the Raiders with a tough loss last week at Pittsburgh. Now back at home, San Francisco keeps rolling. They won 8 in a row by beating Washington at home. Now travel to Las Vegas. And Purdy's just been efficient. He hasn't done anything great. He hasn't done anything bad. He's just been really efficient and letting the players around him, take care of it. The his offensive line's really solid. Obviously, we talk about McCaffrey and Ayuk, Samuel. They're winning without him right now. And on defense, I mean, what can you say? This defense is just rock solid. The team is just overall one of, if not the best, unit combined players, like just as a core unit in the NFL. And the last 2 games, Carr's been sacked 6 times, and he's thrown 4 interceptions. So I like San Francisco, obviously, with the money line. But then again, I could very easily see this being a backdoor cover by the Raiders. I think you mentioned it before. The Raiders are really good. I think it was 5-0 you mentioned there against the spread versus winning team. So I think Las Vegas can be down by 10 or so and get them off a touchdown to kind of backdoor cover here. But San Francisco, the money line, to me, is the play.
Lope, do you dare bet on the Raiders, or are you going to avoid it?
Yeah, I think that we've all said this to avoid the Raiders at all costs. So, San Francisco, as he said, I've had them as the best team in the NFL for a long time. They don't have many weaknesses, if any. Purdy's played very well. Shanahan's got a very quarterback-friendly system for him, and I think I'll take the 49ers. Not too big on the -6, but at least for the money line. And I'm not sure about the over-under. I like San Francisco's defense, but the Raiders are still capable of scoring points. And the 49ers offense has definitely showed life, so I'll stay away there. The only play that I feel strong about is 49ers money line.
So I like 49ers money line as well, and I'd probably fold it into a couple of parlays. But much like Adam, I'm looking at the Raiders covering plus 7.5 after I buy the points up. I feel like the Raiders, whether it's a backdoor cover or just a straight up cover, I think there's an opportunity for the Raiders at home getting more than a touchdown. I feel like that's a good play. I know I'm risking it. The Raiders have been one of the worst teams to bet on this year. We've had such a tough time trying to figure out who they are. One note about Brock Purdy, though, speaking of the 49ers and not the Raiders, Brock Purdy, since week 14, has a 121.4 passer rating. That's the highest in the NFL, just above Kirk Cousins and Trevor Lawrence. So while we've been impressed by the play of the Minnesota and Jacksonville quarterbacks, it's actually been Brock Purdy who's been the best quarterback over the last few weeks. So reason for people to believe in Purdy going into the playoffs. I like him certainly to win this game. As I mentioned a moment ago, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is San Francisco on the money line, but I like the Raiders to cover plus 7.5 after you buy the points. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to cover is between the New York Jets and the Seattle Seahawks. Both of these teams are 7-8. This one will kick off at 4:05 on Fox. Mike White will be the starting quarterback for the Jets. Part of the reason they are favored as 2.5-point favorites in this one, despite being on the road. The over-under is set at 42.5 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and break this one down. The Jets are 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 road games, while the Seahawks are 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. The home team is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the Jets and Seahawks, while the favorite is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings. So home team and favorite have gone hand in hand. And the under is 8-2 in the Jets' last 10 games overall. Adam, what are your thoughts? Do the Jets get a big road win to stay in the playoff chase?
So initially, when I saw the line first hit Monday morning, I actually kind of leaned towards Seattle in this game. And then when they announced that Mike White was going to play, it completely changed my outlook on this one. This Jets football team is a completely different team when White is in there at quarterback. Seattle allows 29th in the league, 25.3 points a game. So I think the Jets can move the football on them. Seattle's lost 3 in a row, but they have played Carolina, San Fran, and Kansas City. So not a very easy stretch for them. The biggest thing for me, though, is that Seattle offense last week at Kansas City. You know, people have been able to move the ball and score against Kansas City. And, you know, Walker didn't have a decent day, but they just didn't really do a whole lot. And it was pretty disappointing. You mentioned they're 0-6 versus spread. Seattle's 0-6 versus spread here as of late. And the under is 8-2. So those are the 2 things I would look at. I know it's really hard to lay points in this one on the road with the Jets, but I just think this is a completely different football team when Mike White's in this game. So I would lay the point the 2.5 with the Jets, and also buy it up and do the 8-2 trend to the under in this game.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one? Do the Jets get this win?
Yes, they do. I think as he said, Mike White is going to give them a different energy. He gives them a different spoke, and this Seattle's defense is kind of falling apart as of late. So I would look to the Jets. I'd have no problem laying the 2 points, even though it's on the road. I think they really need the game to stay in, and I think Saleh will have a good defensive game plan to limit what Seattle's going to try to do.
I'm kind of caught on this one because I want to race towards Mike White and the New York Jets. But funny enough, when Mike White was in there, it wasn't that the Jets were winning games. They just looked better on offense. So part of me wonders if they're actually going to win this game or if somehow the Seahawks can finally get out of this slump. But right now, I'm going to lean slightly towards the Jets on the money line. I haven't put any money down on this game, whether it's the money line, the spread, or the over-under. I haven't touched it yet. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it because I'm not quite there. What are the Jets with Mike White? Better on offense, but does that mean a win? Geno Smith is desperate for a win if the Seahawks have any chance of making the playoffs. It's kind of how it's going to define his offseason. So the gauntlet's being thrown down at him. Meanwhile, Sauce Gardner against DK Metcalf is going to be one of the best matchups of the year. And Zonovan Knight should have a monster game against a terrible Seahawks run defense. So in this game, I'm really looking at player prop bets. I'm looking at fantasy plays. But when it comes to actually picking the game, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I lean just slightly towards Jets on the money line, but I'm not quite there with the same amount of conviction that I've had for other games we've spoken about. So for this one, I'm going to wait to see where public money comes down and I'll definitely give you an answer on Sunday morning as to a pick. But until then, I'm going to stay away from it for the moment. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The next game we're going to talk about is the Battle of LA between the 5-10 Rams and the AFC playoff-bound 8-6 LA Chargers. This one is going to kick off at 4:25 on CBS. The Chargers are a 6.5-point favorite where I see it, and the over-under is set at 40.5 points. Let's get some gambling trends before we get analysis. The Rams are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games overall, while the Chargers are 5-2-1 against the spread in their last 8 games overall. The under is 6-1 in the Rams' last 7 road games, though I wouldn't call this a true road game given it's in their same home stadium. The under is 4-0 in the Chargers' last 4 games overall, and the over is 5-1 in the last 6 meetings between the Rams and the Chargers. Adam, how do you feel about this game? Baker Mayfield coming off a blowout win against the Denver Broncos. Is it a similar performance this week against the Chargers, or do the Chargers continue to roll?
Well, I've been really impressed with the Rams here as of late. This team is not quit. McVay has got these guys playing. They are in almost every single game. In the games that they've lost, they've been in. I know they lost 24-12 to the Packers. They were in that game, but some of their other losses have all been within 1 scores. Chargers come back home now. Obviously, lock themselves in the playoffs, but need to keep playing for seeding. But honestly, I think this number is just too big right now. I think, like I mentioned, McVay's got these guys playing really hard. I think Mayfield, with the reports of Stafford maybe possibly career-ending injury there, that Mayfield can be the quarterback of this team next year if he keeps playing that well. So I think the guys are playing for jobs, but like I said, I can't say enough about this defense. They've been playing hard and keeping themselves in games, and they got the offense going a little bit more now with Mayfield. And I love the Chargers. Don't get me wrong. I like the Chargers a lot, but their defense can give up points here. So I think this is going to be a tight game. I like the Chargers on the money line, but I absolutely like the Rams to keep this within 7 points.
Baker Mayfield getting some love from Adam. Didn't see that coming. Lope, what are your thoughts on this game, the Battle of LA between the Rams and Chargers?
The Chargers have definitely gotten better as they've gotten healthier. So I would say for sure on the money line, but I'm in agreement with them. I think the line's just too big, and I think that Baker has kind of given a breath of life to the Rams team. Maybe not so much as in that they're going to be he's going to be the starter, or they're going to be all-stars, but definitely enough for them to not quit and still play tough. So I'll take the Rams plus 6.5. I really like that.
Wow, 2 for 2 with the Rams covering. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not touching it. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I'm going to wait to see if public money is as eager as Adam and Lope to give the Rams some love. I'm not quite there simply because I like what I'm seeing from the Chargers defense. All of a sudden, not just the offensive weapons getting healthier, obviously making them look better, but this defense over the last couple of weeks has actually been one of the better scoring defenses in the NFL. So I have my eye on that before I'm going to put money down on the spread. That said, the easy pick for me is the Chargers on the money line. Like a number of games this week, this is when I'm folding into parlays. Think it's a good play. I am considering the over based off of the trends that between when these two teams have met, the over is 5-1. But then again, the under is 9-6 in the Rams and Chargers games this year. So the under has been more popular than the over. But part of me wants to lean towards the over for kind of the reasons Adam and Lope are saying. It seems like Baker Mayfield has lifted this Rams offense a little bit, found some life. Tyler Higbee finally getting involved. It seems like he had completely gone away in this offense and now has had a great resurgence over the last 2 weeks. So I could see the Rams covering. I'm not putting my money there yet. It's Chargers money line, and right now I am considering the over. Those are the plays for me. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. The last game we'll talk about in the 4 p.m. window is a mega matchup in the NFC North between the 12-3 Minnesota Vikings and the 7-8 Green Bay Packers. This game is going to kick off at 4:25 p.m. on CBS. Right now, the Packers are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 47 points. This game has a ton of playoff implications, not just obviously for the Packers, but for the Vikings as well, as they continue to chase that number 1 seed if somehow the Eagles slip up against the Saints. Some gambling trends for you before we go around and get analysis. The Vikings are 4-9 against the spread. in their last 13 meetings in Green Bay. The Packers are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games at home versus a team with a winning road record. The over is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings between the two teams. The over is 5-1 in the Vikings' last 6 games versus the NFC North. And the over is 5-2 in the Packers' last 7 versus NFC opponents. Adam, what are your thoughts? Do the Vikings get an underdog win against the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, big game for both teams. Obviously, Minnesota not only to keep pace with Philly if they would stumble, but obviously Dallas as well too to stay in that playoff seeding. Green Bay obviously needed everything last week to happen. They needed Seattle, Washington, the Giants all to lose. They got that and got a big win in Miami. The thing here I look at is the first half in that game against Miami. The secondary is just trash. I mean, Hill and Waddle were doing whatever they wanted to do, and that's the Packers defense that I've been seeing here as of late. They have been playing better, and they've won 2 in a row. But the second half, they put a lot of pressure on Tua and locked down that secondary, and were really impressive defensively. Offensively, still kind of a little bit of a mismatch. You know, Rodgers made some really nice throws, some Rodgers-esque throws, and he also made some really bad throws as well, too. 2 injuries to really watch out for is Christian Watson again got dinged up with a hip injury in that Miami game. But the bigger one to me is Keyshawn Nixon. He's been a return guy, and in the last 4 weeks, he's basically turned himself into an All-Pro alternate. That's how good he's been. He's just been amazing in giving us field position. So he got dinged up in that game. So those are 2 guys to watch out for. As far as the spread in this game, I was really shocked to see Green Bay laying 3. Again, Minnesota's not getting any respect, but they do stay in every game close, and they do pull out these type of games too. So as far as the spread goes, I'm going to stay away from it. The one thing I'm looking at here is obviously with the Watson injury, but I would lean towards the over in here because as sure as the sun comes up tomorrow, that Minnesota defense allows a ton of points. I mean, they allow a ton of points to everybody. I mean, they probably would give them 35, 40 to Denver if they played them. So to me, I know it's primetime Kirk Cousins, but I think Rodgers could throw a pick and lead to some quick points. I think Cousins could throw a pick, lead to some quick points here. So offensively, I think Green Bay between Dobbs being back and getting his legs back underneath him and getting Jones involved more, which Jones was not involved much in the Miami game. They said he was dinged up a little bit, but I think he'll be fine for this one. So I think both sides of the ball offensively, they're going to be able to move the ball up and down the field here. And honestly, taking a look at the weather forecast, it's going to be unseasonably mild in Green Bay. It's only going to be 40 degrees with light winds. So it's going to be optimal conditions here for points to be had. So that's what I'd be looking for is to buy the over down and jump on the over.
I'll pick up where Adam's leaving off because I love that play. It's one of my 2 best bets of the week. I love the under in this game. I love the over in this game, rather. The over 45.5 after I buy the points, over 45.5. Love that. That's one of my 2 best bets of the week. I do like the Packers on the money line. I feel like they're rolling, and I don't like Kirk Cousins going into Green Bay, rather. The Vikings 4-0 against the spread in their last 13 meetings in Green Bay. I'm not sure I know about the spread, but I do like the money line. Packers on the money line feels like a good play for me. I do consider the Vikings plus 4.5. Might want to be on both sides of this between Packers money line, Vikings to cover plus 4.5. But between those 2, I'll figure that out throughout the course of the week. I love the over, like I mentioned, over 45.5. Lope, where are you coming down on this one?
I'm in strong agreement with you guys on the over. I think both defenses you can't really trust, especially the Vikings, and where they've been vulnerable is against the pass. And Aaron Rodgers should be able to do that, feast on that. I hope Watson can play, but I think even with or without, if he's limited, the over should still be good. And then it's a far time from week 1 how these two teams look, but I think the Vikings plus 3 is a good play. They're always in close games, and they're not going to get blown out here. So I would lean heavy towards the Vikings plus 3 as well.
Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following us at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter for all your NFL Week 17 fantasy football and gambling advice. On Sunday Night Football, the 7-8 Pittsburgh Steelers play the 10-5 Baltimore Ravens. That one kicks off at 8:20 on NBC. Where I see it, the Ravens are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 36 points. Some gambling trends for you. The Steelers are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games, where the Steelers are also 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Baltimore. The underdog is 26-3 against the spread in the last 29 meetings between the Steelers and Ravens. The under is 4-0 in the last 4 meetings between the two teams, and the under is 6-0 in the Ravens' last 6 home games. I'll actually start by kicking this one off. I love the Steelers in this game to cover. Steelers plus 4.5 is a great play for me for a number of reasons, whether Lamar Jackson is back or not. I really like the Steelers to cover in this. The trends go that way. How they've been playing recently with Pickett suggests I think they're going to be much more competitive than that 3-point underdog would suggest. So I would buy the 1.5 and take Steelers plus 4.5. As for the total, the under is my other favorite bet of the week. My 2 best bets. This one is the second one, under 37.5 points after I buy it up. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this game is the Steelers plus 4.5 and the under 37.5 after you buy points on both. Adam, what do you think about my picks?
Yeah, I think you took words right out of my mouth on both sides of the coin here. I love Pittsburgh plus the points and the under as well, and all the trends, like you said, pointed to it. I think Pittsburgh's playing a lot better right now for sure, and I think Baltimore is just doing enough to get by. And like you mentioned, I don't really think it matters if Lamar Jackson plays or not. I think Pittsburgh here is the play plus the points in a tough division game, and then also too, these games are always 13-3, 17-13. So like you said, I think you buy a 1.5 up and lean on the under as well.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm a little scared now that we're all in agreement, but my thoughts were definitely the under. I think these two teams always play strong defensive games and low-scoring games, as the trend suggests. So I think that's the strong play. And then I like a lot of what the Steelers are doing, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And even if Lamar comes back, I would assume he'd be somewhat limited. I don't know how much he'll be running around and such. So I think the Steelers plus 3 is a easy play here.
The best game of NFL Week 17 comes as the last game of NFL Week 17 on Monday Night Football as the 12-3 Buffalo Bills play the 11-4 Cincinnati Bengals. That one kicks off at around 8:25 on ESPN. Buffalo is currently a 1-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 49.5 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and break this one down. The Bills are 1-4 against the spread versus a team with a winning record, while the Bengals are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games at home. The underdog is 7-2 against the spread in the last 9 meetings between the Bills and Bengals. The over is 7-3 in the last 10 meetings. The under is 7-1 in the Bills' last 8 road games, and the under is 7-0 in the Bengals' last 7 versus a team with a winning record. Adam, big matchup in the AFC will absolutely determine who has that number 1 seed. Do the Buffalo Bills pull it out, or does Joe Burrow continue the longest winning streak right now in the AFC?
Boy, what a huge matchup here in Monday Night Football. I mean, as bad as these Monday Night Football games have been, this is just an incredible matchup here. And I am back and forth on both sides of this game on who to take in this one. Buffalo's won 6 in a row. Cincinnati's won 7 in a row. Buffalo had a little bit of trouble with Miami, but also that was a pretty bad weather game. Otherwise, they've been in pretty much control of the games. Cincinnati, these last 2, they had to come back against Tampa and they had to fight off New England. So I'm kind of looking at that, but right now I'm kind of leaning towards Buffalo. Not 100% on that yet, but the one thing I'm looking at is the over in this game. I think both defenses have a lot of points. We've definitely seen it with Cincinnati. They've definitely given up points here as of late. Buffalo, not as much, but Buffalo's defense can be scored upon. And with Burrow at home, I think he can move the ball enough to make that happen. So right now, my play right now is buy it down and take the over. And as far as the line here, I'm leaning Buffalo, but not 100% on that yet.
Lope, what are your thoughts on this matchup between the Bills and Bengals?
I'm a little weary myself. I'm very excited to watch it. But the Bengals right now are just playing at a very top level, especially at home. And Burrow seems to have some kind of magic in these close games or late games. So I'm going to lean towards the Bengals, especially. I'll take them to win for sure. And slightly different, I think both teams are going to try to feel out each other and maybe play a little vanilla because they could see each other in the playoffs. So I'll go with the under here and the Bengals on the money line.
I feel differently than Lope does. I think this is a pull out every possible stop kind of game for both teams because I think both teams need this one to try to go after that number 1 seed if there's a possibility of it. Obviously, there is a chance for both. The Bills, obviously, with the win, could lock it up. So I expect this to be a very good game. Bengals come in with a 7-game winning streak, longest in the AFC. Bills have a 6-game winning streak, second longest in the AFC. That said, the Bengals have the longest active winning streak against the spread with that 7 games. The under has been popular for both teams, 10-5 over the course of the year. This one, to me, which quarterback do I like more? Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, take your pick, coin flip. Like both of them, but I'll lean just slightly towards Joe Burrow. Something tells me at home, this team is healthy. I'm not going to necessarily say on the money line just yet. I'm actually waiting until I see the injury report to give a game pick and give a money line play. But I like Joe Burrow to cover the spread. I'll buy the 1.5, and I'll get Cincinnati a plus 2.5 at home. I feel like that's a really good play. On the other side, I love the under in this one. I think the under is the better play. I know these are two offenses that can put up a lot of points, but I actually think this is a game in which the defenses shine. One of the reasons I'm not making a game pick right now, when Jordan Poyer has been healthy, the Buffalo Bills are undefeated. I expect him to be healthy. It makes me feel like the Buffalo Bills could be the money line play. I do like Cincinnati to cover plus 2.5, and I do like under 51 after I buy the 1.5. That's how I would be betting this game. For those interested, the best bets of the week for Butt Fumble Sports are Minnesota Green Bay over 45.5 points and Pittsburgh at Baltimore under 37.5 points. Those are my two best bets of the week. We've gone 2-0 the past 2 weeks, and over the course of the year, our best bets are 24-11. One more time, my two best bets of the week are Minnesota Green Bay over 45.5 points and Pittsburgh at Baltimore under 37.5 points. I appreciate all of you joining us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. That concludes a big preview show for NFL Week 17, covering every game that there is. No bye weeks left, and every game seems to have playoff implications. And for those in fantasy, this is a big week. It's your championship weekend. So good luck to all of those betting. Good luck to all those fantasy owners. As always, I want to give a lot of love to those who contributed to the show. Adam does an unbelievable job for us. Great picks, great analysis, Adam. You can check him out at SpotterAJ on Twitter. That's at SpotterAJ on Twitter. Make sure you're following him. And J Lope Dog. Lope does a great job with his takes and analysis. Make sure you follow J Lope Dog, DAWG. That's J Lope Dog on Twitter. And of course, couldn't do the show without Bleece. Make sure you're following Bleece as well at BLEACENFT. Bleece does a wonderful job for us. Thank you so much, Bleece, for all you do. Appreciate all you guys joining us and following us. Make sure you follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. Giving out fantasy and gambling advice for NFL Week 17. We'll switch over to TikTok Live. Make sure you bring your fantasy questions with you as we go live there now. Appreciate all of you joining us and have a great week. We look forward to talking to you soon.